Just giving you a warning. The light is on. That means we're live. We are the Goffstown Budget Committee. This is December 13th, 2011. And Scott, would you mind starting the roll, and we'll go towards Lisa, please?
Sure. Scott Gross.
Lisa Jukes.
Richard Meany.
Brian Lewis.
Guy Garrett.
Dan Cloutier.
Phil Kendall.
John Burke. Merry Christmas, Goffstown.
Ivan Bellavo.
Bill Bates.
Elizabeth DeBrule.
Jennifer Thoreau.
And we have two members, Checker Hansen, who I haven't heard, so I'm gonna presume she's gonna make it. And Dick Fletcher mentioned to me that he would be late if he was here at all. That gives us 12, I think, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 at the moment. All right. Give me, all right. It'll be a few minutes. I want to get started, and for some reason, I don't know why, my little drop down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's there. It just gives me an extra name way at the end. Okay, we're here, and I believe what we're gonna do tonight, we had talked about getting through the school. Or at least beginning the school. Is there any open questions or anything on the school that we need to get through before we get started, Philip?
Yeah, John, we had requested some information on pupil counts and faculty counts.
Yeah, we've
It was
got,
my,
Checker is here.
I thought that the superintendent would be providing that. I expected.
She did. That question I'm gonna take is going to the chair. So I'm gonna handle that one.
Sorry.
So if we go to your inbox, I received something from Stacy today. And when I got home about not quite 5:30, she had sent some information that I received at 12:21. She's saying staffing detail is attached, and I sent that to you. It's a PDF. It's not an Excel version like we got last year. If you want student enrollment, go to the website, and she provided us the enrollment PDF that's on the website. And it says requirements based on minimum standards for education for guidance is as follows. Ed 306:13, that's the the State Department of Education's rule-making authority. Elementary schools must have a minimum of 1 full-time guidance counselor per 500 students served. Middle and high school must have 1 full-time guidance counselor per 300 students served. So that's that. Requirements for minimum standards regarding principal can be found at Ed 306.15 and indicate that you must have a principal in the services of an associate principal for 500 or more students. I'm not going to interpret that. I don't know if you know what that means, Jen, but it doesn't say per 500. It just says you need an associate principal for 500 or more.
I guess I'd refer you back to the regulation, the ED 30615. I don't know the answer to the question.
And just curious if you guys had talked about it at school board at all. That's really
Did not come up in the last school board
the
meeting.
point I was going with. Okay. Did you all get maybe not, some of you get a chance to open up the email I sent with the enhanced spreadsheet?
Is that the one from today?
This is the one I sent at like 5:48 today.
No.
And it's been very hard, and what I did is I kind of put totals in there. I segregated and put salaries and bennies subtotals and non-salary and benny subtotals by location. And all you have to do is, and it still works where you put the fund, the function and the activity, and it will bring up all of the schools and the district for those particular functions and activities. So when we're talking, or if there's a motion can be made, you can see it all on one sheet, although you guys still have the whole detail sheet that you got in your papers, and you could muddle through where you need to muddle through in order to get where you're going. Alrighty dokey now. Anything further? Did you get that question answered, or that piece, or the information so provided for the open question there? Were there any others? Okay, then I guess what we'll first do is similar to what we did to the town. I'm gonna be looking for a motion to start off, and I see your hand, Guy.
you're looking for a motion to set a starting point?
Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion to set the starting point for deliberations on the school budget to the current 2010, 2011 adopted budget.
The current would be 2011, 2012. No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what
you're
you
right.
mean.
Yes.
Okay, is there a...
Second.
That, Richard?
That's Bill.
That was Bill.
Oh,
I was just doing two as in column two,
okay.
focusing on the paper.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to adopt, now, let me get the numbers, to see if we all, if I look at the well, actually, I can look at my location import sheet and just put nines, and that's only the general fund, so that's not gonna help. I need, the general fund is going to be 34,606, 355, correct? And let me get my other sheet out. I have to add it up.
34,606, 354?
Yeah, I see your hand. 34,606, 355. And I haven't verified that. I'll go to last year's spreadsheet. And Fund 21, which is food. The food budget from the spreadsheet for the current budget is 1101, 796. And the food budget, excuse me, the special revenues, which are the federal, what I can tell,
The number that was adopted last year?
is 752, 160, yep, but I wanna do it by, make sure I have all the numbers, 117, it says 50 cents. So the total operating looks like it's 36, 460, 268.
It's a little high from what was on the ballot.
Well, that's what we need to take a peek at.
What
'cause-
was on the ballot was 36,378, 150.
I'd like to amend the motion.
Not yet.
You're talking from last year?
Yeah, the budget that was adopted for this year in March.
This year.
First, I've got, I'll put you on the list.
Okay.
Jeez, oh man. Oh, there we go.
First, I wanna make sure we have an accurate motion. Phil had his hand up first.
No, I was just cursing my computer.
That's Bill,
Thanks for
sorry.
the clarification.
Phil, okay, so let's get back to last year's. Let me pull up last year's.
General supplies.
Guy, could you repeat that number, please?
36,378, 150 is what was adopted.
Thank you.
Budget, school. That's true, it would have been the default budget that was on the ballot, which I'm not sure I even have in my spreadsheet. Which means, anybody here able to corroborate? Because I don't have my last year's books with me, so.
I have the actual PDF
The
of the
warrant?
ballot.
Oh, you know what? I have the warrant article.
It's gonna be on the town website.
Yep, that's where I'm going. So I just want anybody else who's here that might want to give that a shot. Point of order?
Well, it might save us time. I mean, my motion's gonna be, it's gonna start off at the school board's budget and
Well,
rather
then
than
we're
fishing.
getting ahead of then we're getting ahead.
No, I understand that, but if you wanna go and spend 5 minutes and then we decide to then go and it does get amended to
Okay,
start with this.
I'm still gonna need all the numbers. Either way I do
For
it.
any of them,
Huh?
for the notes.
Either way I do it, I'm gonna have the numbers.
Go to the town website.
Okay, well, let me do this. While I'm looking, would you speak to your motion? And if without objection from the committee members, I'll look for the real numbers. We'll continue to proceed, and we'll verify the numbers, and anything we do will be subject to the verification.
Sure.
Speak to your motion.
Starting at the current budget, to me, that, first of all, I think we made a mistake on the town side by not doing it, starting with that number then. What we're being asked to do here is increase an existing budget that the voters, this is the number that they gave us to work with last year. And now we're being asked to increase it. I want to start with what we have, what they've resoundingly approved and made crystal clear to us in March. And then let's go through the requested increases one by one and see what lines we want to adjust one way or the other. To start with the request and go backwards is a huge endeavor, as we learned last year. And like I said, I think we should have done this with the town. I didn't think of it until after we get started on it. But especially on the school side, since it's such a large number, let's start with what we have. Let's look at what they're asking to increase, and let's go from there.
Bill, you want to speak to your second?
Yes, I would only say, you know, I kind of look at it as it's six of one, half dozen the other. We can either start with the budget that was voted on in March and look at the lines requested for increase, or we could start with the proposed budget and look backwards and propose changes or decreases. So I don't, you know, to me, it's six of one, half dozen the other. I think that probably some, you know, there's a fact in there that the guy has just brought up, which is it was an adopted budget, so it's a number that was acceptable by the taxpayers, so I guess that's fine with me.
I've got Phil.
Yeah. Well, the guy kind of answered one of my questions was what, because I missed the beginning of this towns, and I thought we'd start with the selectmen's budget to us. And I guess I just want to make sure, I'm not in favor of this because I want to make sure that we're doing equal approach to the town and the school. And we start with the selectmen's budget for the town. I understand Guy's opinion, what he said that he thought about it afterwards and he thinks we made a mistake. I think I disagree with that. I don't think, I know, I believe I disagree with that. So I think we should start with the school board's budget to us.
Scott?
I'd like to make a motion, I'd like to amend the motion that we start with the school district's proposed budget.
So the amendment would be to increase the various lines to get to which number?
Bottom number.
Can you give me the number?
Want to get a second before you bother doing that?
Second.
No,
Oh,
I want the number.
oh, okay.
I know I'm gonna get a second. so
General
I'm-
fund budget?
Nope,
Or
the whole
total?
thing, the whole budget.
36,400,000.
I disagree.
Oh, damn it.
Okay.
I left those people.
37,318,299.
Okay, that's not what I have. I've got,
Are you asking for the sum of
All
10?
of them?
yeah,
21 and
that's the
22?
admin budget. I believe the school board's budget was 36,910,254.
We just got a handout last Thursday.
All right, yes.
36,910,253.
Okay, the spreadsheet and the paper doesn't match, but we'll find the dollar. I'm not worried about it.
Right, they gave us an adjusted one last Thursday, right?
Revenue only,
Which is revenue?
just revenue. We have the additional Excel spreadsheet that came in the mail, which shows the which includes funds 21 and 22. So the spreadsheet says that. I will put the 36,910,253.
From, yeah.
Is there a yes, there is, Jen.
Yeah.
At this point, since it's an amended motion, I had, was your hand back up?
No.
Okay, then my main motion list, I have no one. Would you talk to your amendment, please?
Yeah, Phil Kendall really stated it. I just think that it should just be consistent with what we did with the town. It alleviates the folks saying that we treated one entity different than the other, and I respect, you know, Guy's opinion, and had we started the other way, I probably would have made this motion, but I just think it should be consistent for both. And as Bill Bates also said, it really doesn't matter, you just need a starting point.
Jen, you want to speak to your second?
I don't feel the need.
Guy?
The problem with maintaining consistency is that you don't want to consistently make mistakes. You don't want to consistently repeat mistakes. In my opinion only, we made an error on the town side by starting with the proposed budget rather than the current budget. This particular one, and there was a difference come March this past year, is that the Budget Committee recommended and worked very well with the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen's budget was not, in fact, it was increased by this committee before it got on the ballot. On the school side, that was not the case, and the voters made it crystal clear that, and this is the other thing, is that what the voters voted in on the town side and what they voted in on the school side were what this committee recommended, okay? There was not a disparity last year between the town's final proposed budget and this committee's budget, but there was a huge disparity between this committee's budget and the school's budget, or the proposed school budget and the default. And the voters went with the default. That's what they voted in. There's no difference on the town side whether we had started, I don't know how to explain this clearly, so I'll just say this. I'm not one to repeat a mistake. We made a mistake on the town side, in my opinion, by starting with the town's proposed budget. I don't want to repeat the same mistake here. We've got the budget that was voted in by the taxpayers. Let's start with that, and let's look at the proposed increases and work from there, and not the other way around. We need to respect what the taxpayers and the voters put forth just a few months ago. Now, if we're being asked to increase those budgets, let's look at the lines they want to increase one by one and go from there, not the other way around. I don't want to repeat a mistake.
Phil?
I agree, not trying to repeat mistakes or learning from mistakes. And we can say we can learn from a mistake and say, okay, next year, since we didn't do it what we should have done this year, we'll do it next year. So, but this year, let's keep it consistent. The other thing I'd like to say is, I've heard many times being said that the working with the selectmen went well last year and the school board didn't go as well last year. Let's put that portion behind us. Let's talk about this year. Let's see how we can do it better this year. We want to learn from mistakes. Let's do the communication better. I think we're doing well this year. We got our Excel spreadsheet that we asked for. We got everything we asked for in Excel. We've gotten all the information that we've asked for up till now. So I think the communication is going well. I think, you know, we can only improve. So let's try to be positive here and say that we can be more cooperative with the school board. I agree, things went better with the selectmen than they did the school board last year. I don't think anyone around this table will disagree with that. But let's learn from that and see if we can improve on that. And I think we're doing a good job so far this year. So I still support the motion,
The amended motion.
the amended motion. Thank you,
It's the
Richard.
amendment. Did you have your hand up, Bill? Then go Bill, Guy, and back to Scott. Bill?
Well, I mean, everybody's made some good points here, and I agree with Phil that the communication and the process this year with the school's been much better. And I don't see starting with the existing budget as working against that at all. And I don't, quite frankly, I don't get the whole consistency thing, because like I said, if you're starting from one and proposing line items to go up versus starting with something new and proposing lines to take down, to me, there's no difference. So I say, with all Phil said, the communication's better, the process, as far as I'm concerned, is way better. And I just don't see the consistency argument at all. I just don't see it.
Guy?
I didn't see any problem with communication last year either. We got the same Excel sheets last year that we got this year, thankfully, from the school board. This has nothing to do with a jousting match between us and the school versus us and the town. This is just trying to avoid doing what we did on the town side, which is, you know, having started with the proposed town budget versus starting with, you know, the accepted budget or the adopted budget. I don't want to do the same thing twice. So, like you said, Phil, let's put last year behind us and let's straighten this out right now. Let's not repeat the mistake, and let's go forward from here.
Scott?
To call the question.
Okay, before I'm gonna even ask for a second on that one, hold. I did see Elizabeth's name.
That's what I was gonna do, so I'll second.
Okay, well, hold on for a second, because I want to give a point of order to the committee before any vote is taken. From what I have, the main motion, which I can't verify, because when I go to the town site, it comes back and says you can't get to the town site. For some reason, it's not responding. So the only thing I have is the book, and the book says 36,460, 266, okay? The book also says that the request is 36,910, 253. If you do the math, okay, the difference for the amendment is an increase of a starting point of 449,986. I used a different calculation, so it's a buck off minus 449,985 because the electronic version and the paper version are off, and I bet you if I look at all the details of the number, there's gonna be a rounding. You all understand what the difference is? Okay, so, hang on. And by the way, the, Scott and, that was Elizabeth, call the amended question. Okay, those in favor of calling the question, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe that's 7. Let me do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay. And those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's everybody. So, Bill, yes or no? On the
No.
calling? No. Brian?
Yes.
Checker?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Guy?
No.
Ivan?
No.
Jen?
Yes.
John?
No.
Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Yes.
Richard?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay. That is yes, 7, no, 6. I'm gonna hide this column. That is 13 votes. Motion passes. The question is called. There is no one on the list, so I'm gonna call for a vote. The vote is on the amendment, okay, not the main. If the amendment passes, we then go back to discussing the main motion as amended. If the amendment does not pass, we still go back to the main motion as it was made. Y'all understand the question that's before you?
This is the fun
The
part.
question is on the amendment only. Do you want to talk about a main motion? If you want to talk about the main motion as if we're starting from the school board, you would say yes. If you want to talk about the motion as presented, you would say no. Do you all understand the question? Okay. Those in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Motion passes. It is amended. I'm going to call the roll first. Dan was no. Bill?
No.
Brian?
Yes.
Checker?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
Guy?
No.
Ivan?
No.
Jen?
Yes.
John?
No.
Lisa?
Yes.
Philip?
Yes.
Richard?
No.
Scott?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just bring this down to 75% so I can. Now, we are on the main motion, and I saw Elizabeth's hand.
I call the question.
Second. Seven 25.
Call the main motion. All right, we have a motion on the floor and seconded to call the main motion question. Those in favor of calling the question signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Okay, I'm gonna do the roll this time because it's the same thing. The motion passes. It is called. Scott, to call the question, Scott, yes. Richard, no. Philip and Lisa, yes. John, no. Jen, yes. Ivan and Guy, no. Elizabeth Checker, Brian, yes. Bill and Dan, no. So now we are on the main motion as amended.
One more vote.
No, I have, yeah, one more vote. I have to keep this going, so I've got the right votes in the right spot. Okay, as amended. So we're voting on starting at the school board presentation, and there is Scott's motion was to 253. We'll have to find that extra dollar something, or the dollar someplace, but that's where it is. So the question before you is, do you want to start with 36, 9, 10, 253, yes or no? Those in favor signify by raising your hand. Those opposed? That motion will pass. So I am going to read the votes. You tell me if I'm correct. Okay, those voting in favor: Brian, Checker, Elizabeth, Jen, Lisa, Philip, and Scott. Those opposed: Dan, Bill, Guy, Ivan, John, and Richard. I get your votes correct? Okay, we have a starting point. So, do we have a motion? Any motions? We said we would go school by school. So, right now, I'm gonna be looking at 000, and that's what I will entertain motions on, which is the district level. And,
I see it.
any motion must be segregated no greater than the MS-27 level, which is roughly the program level, meaning regular programs, which is the 1100 series, the 1200 series, the 1300 series, the 1400 series. You get the drift, right? Okay?
What do you need? Somebody got the key?
Can you go back to you said the 000 tab?
It's the district-wide, which is 000. So if you are on detail or district summary by, no, it's not that. It's subtotals. I think that's the one I sent. That has, well, a very, very tall header. But the top section is 000, and that is at the district level. You are able to, if you see the
Oh, I see it. So
detail.
beginning with line, well, beginning, Fund 10, General Fund, location 000, district-wide.
correct, so if it's location 000, you're good to go.
Okay.
I know where I want to start. I couldn't find it. Where's the whiteboards? Smart boards.
Yes, Elizabeth?
All right. I am in function 1100, line 731, new equipment. I am making a motion to reduce that line by 128,000.
And what's the number right now?
128,000.
So you're gonna zero it down to?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Those are the smart boards, right?
Correct.
Could you repeat the function,
1100,
yeah?
731, or 10, 000, 1100, 731. I'm gonna see if my
New
little,
equipment.
New equipment, that's all it says.
let's see if my line input works.
It does. It's
128
really
even, right?
slick.
District pool requirement for smart boards, 128,000. All right, before we talk about it, I
Point of
found
order,
it.
Mr. Chairman?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'll get that. Microsoft Excel is restarting. All right, let's
Right in.
do your point of order, because I don't have a second yet, and I'm still waiting for
I'll
a
second.
second.
I'll second that.
I got Guy first. What's your point of order?
What page are you on? You know, for the people that don't have a
Page
computer?
Page 6.
Are you on the summary page or the expanded detail page?
Detail.
So where it's written in by hand.
You're on the right page. Whatever the heck it is.
All right, thank you,
And
Mr.
You're on the right
Chairman.
page, because
And
you're the
as,
same
as
thing.
a, as a functional benefit, if you go and you look at these numbers on the left, John,
I filtered.
they'll say 10,000,
Yes.
1100,
This
Yep.
and then right below it says 731.
It up right here.
Everything is a numerical sequence by that number.
If you got the
Okay.
So you should be able to find it.
I just needed a starting point.
Okay,
I have it.
yeah, I need an Excel.
My functions. I give
you mine.
No, I'm back. It's here.
I used the,
But I lost the, Elizabeth. Elizabeth? Would you speak to your, motion, please?
Well, the reason I'm making this motion is kind of the reason that I would support any, or not any motions, but would support motions at this point, is that I think that given the adjustments this year with revenue and everything else, we're looking at a very sizable increase on the school side. As much as I appreciate smart boards and what they do, and they are definitely more than just bells and whistles, I think there are higher priority items in this budget. And I think that this is something that, we already have 20 in the district, I believe she said, was it, we have 25. I think we're gonna have to just hang tight with those for a year and put our priorities elsewhere.
Guy, speak to your second, please.
That was the guy put up a sign on his house across the street from the guy with all the big Christmas lights. Ditto.
You have that sign?
Philip?
Did you see it?
I agree completely with Elizabeth. I think this is a nice to have, not a necessary this year. I mean, it's technology, we want to get there, but this, in our presentation, it was also stated that the goal is not to have one in every classroom. So I think we need to stagger them a little bit, and I think, you know, Elizabeth said it well, this is a nice to have, we don't need to do it, so hold off for a year.
Jen?
While I can completely see everybody's point, yes, there are points in this budget where $128,000 would go far. We felt we were reasonable in asking for this because of the way the teachers responded to last year's doling out of them. They had to apply for them if they wanted them. The teachers and the students really put together some amazing PowerPoint presentations and other interactive technology presentations. I can see why you would want to cut this, but the board felt that it was important enough to leave in the budget because, of course, technology is the way of the future.
I've got Checker and Lisa. Checker, you're up.
I would not support this cut. There are gonna be things in this budget that we can cut. They don't directly affect student services and student learning. The smart boards are something that do. They're in the classrooms, they're in students' hands, they're being used daily, and they directly affect the instruction going on in the classrooms. They enhance it, and they're not there to make the teachers' lives easier. They're there to make the students' learning more in-depth.
Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say similar to what Checker just said. In this day and age, I don't think technology is a nice to have. I think it's a must have. We're living in a time, you know, when I was going to school, I had a notebook and a pencil. That doesn't suffice anymore. And in fact, when we were discussing last week with Stacy, there was a majority of you who were on the bandwagon to not buy textbooks and to just buy Kindles. And we were saying that books are no longer the wave of the future, it's technology. My son is in the 4th grade at Maple Avenue. They have a smart board in his classroom. I've used it myself. It's not just a fun little gimmick in the class. It's an interactive learning tool that gets kids excited about learning. It delivers content much more effectively and efficiently than if it was not there. So I won't support this cut, and that is why.
Guy?
I echo what Elizabeth and Phil said. However, if Checker, I mean, we can always come back and revisit this after Checker makes her motions to reduce this budget in other areas, like you said, that are not, you know, as important to education, then we can always come back and maybe increase this line. So I'll look forward to seeing, you know, what other areas you're gonna be reducing or proposing to reduce.
Further comments? Bill?
I would just, I think Phil's answer is kind of aligns with a lot of how I'll be voting this year, and that is right idea, wrong year. So I'm not taking anything away from what you said. In fact, I agree with it. I've used smart boards. They're in my son's school where he works. I believe in them. I think they're great. But as far as just being mindful of the economy we live in, which is a broken record that I know people are tired of hearing, but trying to be mindful of the economy we live in, we just need to try to be proportional to what we're doing here. And it's a little, it unfortunately, in this economy, with the way it is a nice to have. It is not a gotta have. Even though I believe in them, I like them, I've used them. I just don't think this is the right year to do it, and I think it's appropriate to be proportional with what we're spending this year with the taxpayer in mind.
Further comments? Seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. The question is whether to take the new equipment line in the district level at the 1,100 and zero it out. Those in favor of the reduction, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and those opposed. 11, 12, 13. Okay, I think I got this. It would be, Checker said no, Lisa said no, and Jen said no. Everybody else said yes. Motion passes. And we're still on 000. Okay, do we go to 101?
No.
Okay.
I'll do it. I'd like to, it's page 45 for the paper folks. And it's 511. And it's late buses.
What's the function?
What's the function code? It's the third,
2721,
511?
511,
721?
yeah.
2721 511. Student transportation, it is currently at $54,018. Is that what you have?
No.
What do you have?
It's
Okay.
currently at 1,076,000.
You might be looking at a total. What-
I know, but the one I'm looking at specifically is 24,642.
Okay, hang on a second. We might be going a little more granular than I have it. So if you can give me,
I'll give you the whole thing.
54, Dan.
10-0-000-2721
Yeah,
-18
it's
and the line below?
511.
Okay.
1076, right? Million?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the breakdown, where I'm going specifically, is the late buses.
Correct.
Let me find it, because I'm looking at the electronic spreadsheet, and
Hey, look
it
at the
is,
paper, right, John?
Yeah. Are you reducing it?
so why
That's
do
what my
I-
motion will be, yeah.
And I'll second
Okay,
it.
I'd like to hear the entire,
He said, are you reducing it? And he said, then I'll.
okay, so why, what didn't work?
Fabulous.
It is.
10,000.
Hope the taxpayers are watching tonight.
I do too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know what it is. That was the over-under. 1076985.
Yeah.
It's formatted differently on that sheet. Okay. 1076985 to, what number do you want, Scott?
I want to reduce it by 24,642.
Equals 1076985 minus 24602?
24,642.
642.
So that would result in 1,052,343. And are you still seconding that, John?
Yes.
Okay, can you speak to your motion, please, Scott?
Yeah, I think I think we have to make some difficult decisions throughout this budget. And it's no disrespect to the school district for their hard work in preparing it, but in order to get to what I think, we know we're gonna have a big hurdle in terms of the increase due to decreased revenues, which is not anybody's fault, it is what it is. And in order to try to get there, I think, I'm trying to look at some things that I think have a more negligible impact towards student education. And we didn't have the late buses this year. I know it's a little bit of a problem for some folks, but I think it's one of those things where I think we can make a cut that won't be too hurtful.
And John, speak to your second.
I agree with Scott, that, you know, we did go a year without the late buses. And I think we could also, repeat that again this coming year. You know, I think some of the kids, you know, handled that very well. I'm sure there was a few that probably needed it, but to have just a few for that kind of money, you know, I just support this motion. I think it's a good motion. Thank you.
Lisa?
I will not support this motion. It's $24,000 out of $1 million line item. The late buses run for students at the middle school. I can't speak to the high school. To help kids who are in after-school programs, kids who otherwise would go home, some of them to empty houses. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I know Crispin's House was instrumental in running the programs at Mountain View Middle School and had to pull out of Mountain View Middle School because they didn't have enough kids attend, because the kids that did attend took that late bus. So, to my mind, I think the late bus is instrumental in keeping kids in programs after school where otherwise they're at home alone or they're out doing things other than participating in enriching activities after school. In Crispin's House, if you check out their website, they do have enriching activities. It's not just homework help. It's also, it is homework help, but it's peer counseling. It's lots of arts. It keeps kids engaged in the community and out of trouble. So I will not support this motion.
Kind of saw you both at once, so I'll go to Jen and over to Checker.
Okay. Yes, it's true. We haven't had the late bus this year. And programs like Crispin's House has suffered. I want to kind of bring you back to the high school presentation. I think it was last year where Mr. McBride told you the top 100 kids, out of those top 100 kids, like 93% of them participated in some extracurricular activity. Mountain View Middle School feeds the high school. Obviously, these kids are going to not be engaged in other things besides school by the time that they hit the high school. They won't want to be part of the whole enrichment, which is the student council, which is the art program, which is the sports programs. You know, that if they can't get there, if they can't get started as middle schoolers playing basketball at middle school, they may not make the team in high school. It's a social impact, but I think it's a significant impact to all of our students. Again, the bottom 100 students that Mr. McBride pointed out to us, a significant number of them did not participate in extracurricular activities. So I would urge you to not support this motion of cutting the 24,642.
And Checker?
I would also not support cutting this. In response to Mr. Burt, where you believe it may not have affected many people, what I've heard from taxpayers whose children did take advantage of this program is they are struggling this year with how to get their kids services after school. Children are going home to homes where there are no parents. Parents are working. The economy has affected everyone, so you can imagine there are more working parents in our community than there have been in the past. And giving those parents an option for their kids after school is something that this school should be able to offer. If we look statistically, we know that kids who are not in after-school programs as teenagers are 3 times more likely to use marijuana, drugs, to drink, smoke, and engage in sexual activity after school. Statistics from the State Board of Education. So we do have to think about what we're offering. It is a small cost for what we can offer to our students.
Elizabeth?
I am gonna support this motion regretfully, but I mean, I just have 2 points to make. I mean, basically, these kids have parents, and at some level, they need to take responsibility for their kids after school. Also, I think this is a perfect example for where pay to play, so to speak, could be viable. I mean, for the kids who can't afford it, that I would be more inclined to pay for it than to pay for it for kids whose parents can't afford it.
Lisa? And then I
I
have Scott.
absolutely agree that, and I know we're not supposed to agree or disagree. My statement would be that parents do have to take responsibility, but some don't. So my feeling is, and what I have heard, is there are students who no longer participate in programs after school
Says Girl Scouts.
Guys?
at Mountain View Middle School because they cannot, there is no transportation for them to come home.
Scott?
You know, and I would love to have not made the motion, but the fact is that I think we have to make some priorities here. And I wouldn't even think about cutting summer school, which was reintroduced, was refunded, because that is critically important to the education of our students and those kids who are not, getting up to speed where they should be. It's very important, that summer school intervention. And I think if times were better, I probably would fully support, this money being in the budget. But when, you look at the fact that we're gonna see a pretty sizable reduction in revenue, which was then means that the taxpayers are gonna have to pick up that tab. I'm just trying to mitigate some of that in ways in which I think will have less impact to the quality of education. And that's why I made the motion.
I've got Bill and Brian.
Yeah, I guess I would agree with Scott. I mean, trying to look at non-core offsets in a tough economy. I just find it interesting that we can use the economy to warrant an increase in a line item. But every time when we use the economy to warrant being moderate, that doesn't seem to be concurrence. I find that incredibly ironic. But that being what it is, I'm gonna support the motion, and I think Scott has struck the right balance here. Is it what we all would want in better times? Absolutely not. For all the reasons Checker said. And so, in better times, perhaps we'll readdress this issue and discuss it again, but for now, I'll support the motion.
Brian?
I'm gonna support the motion, and it's kind of hard for me to do because my kids participate in some of the after-school programs, and basically the result for us was we had to scramble and get the kids picked up. Inconvenience, but I don't see it being a deal breaker. And some of the kids who from my experience, and I don't know, can't speak for the whole field, but have found a ride home at some point. So I think, to Bill's point, in this economy, I mean, we should be looking at the important things in this budget to stay. And this is important, and I'm not gonna diminish the importance of it, but, we should be, pretty smart, and I'm gonna vote for this motion.
Jen?
You know, since everybody else is talking economy, we really need to consider keeping the late bus on, because it's exactly that demographic that may have issue getting their children back and back home from school, unless they're able to participate in some sort of after-school program with busing afterwards. You know, I look at, and I think the school board looks at, this particular thing as something of an investment in our children by putting forth relatively small money in a $36 million budget. It's a good investment for our children to be able to participate in programs after school, to keep them engaged, to keep them connected to the school, and to get them home.
Philip?
Yes. I haven't made up my mind whether I'm gonna support this or not, but it was definitely something that I was debating whether to. I have a note right here. What I'm hearing is it's a relatively small number. It's a relatively small number. Most of the cuts or adjustments that we're gonna make are gonna be small numbers, some are gonna be big. What is the cutoff point that makes it a big number or a small number? I mean, it's a number. Something has to be done. The economy is tough, but we need to support our kids. We need to do the right thing for our kids. And, you know, I used the late bus when I was in high school. It was a long time ago, but I also walked home because the late bus wasn't there, or I got picked up. It's a convenience. It does have a benefit, but is it a benefit for a small number or a benefit for all the kids? And I guess that's kind of where I'm weighing it. Is it, how does it affect everybody? And I understand some of that group that do use it. There's a small subset of that really benefit from it. There's others that take advantage of it because it's there and it's a nicety. So again, I'm still balancing that out.
All right, before that, I'm gonna put myself in here, because I think I've heard enough, and do you guys permit me to call the question as a? Okay, I wanna make a motion to call the question.
Second.
She had her hand up.
Yeah, Jen will be the last one to speak, because I recognized her. Is there, who said second? Bill? All right, the question has been called. All those in favor of calling the question, signify by raising your hand. Opposed? Okay. Jen is the only one, but you get the final say.
I get the final word anyway.
The question was called. After you make your comments, we will vote.
The economic impact of this, as we saw, was that it affected Crispin's house to a point where they had to pull out of the school. It's not just our children that are affected by this cut. It is others in our community that could be affected by this cut. Perhaps Crispin's house could come back if the late bus were funded, which, again, helps several students. That's all.
Okay. So then the question is called. The motion on the table is whether to reduce the student transportation by removing the late buses. It's a $24,642 reduction to 0002721,511 in the general fund. Those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand, please. Those opposed? And that will carry. Can I take a roll call, please? Philip?
No.
Jen?
No.
Checker?
No.
Lisa?
No.
Did I get all the no's? Did everybody else vote yes?
Yes.
Thank you. That would be Scott, Richard,
Yes.
John, Ivan, Guy, Elizabeth, Brian, Bill, and Dan. That passes 9-4. We are still currently in 000.
I'm gonna get the keys to get the heat on here, because I think all the people are cold, so.
Not all the people.
The important
A
people.
few.
Enough of them who want to get warmer. That's fine.
I'm actually kind of warm.
Nice.
Is there a, are there further I will not take a final vote on any motion that comes forward without Scott coming back, because he's doing it for the people.
Humanitarian reasons.
But I can sit here and accept additional motions on 000.
I'm looking at it, just a moment.
Notes over here.
Couch somewhere. George?
Good. That sounds good to me.
We're gonna have to reduce the budget then.
$66 is a good set.
Further motions, or do we segue? Bill?
Nothing's happening.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion in function 2213, line 322.
2213.
Professional program
322? 322.
improvement, I believe is
I'm
the
sorry, what
acronym.
function?
2213 and section 322.
000. Power School University.
And I'd like to make a motion that the current proposed be reduced by $32,600
So it's gonna go, you're saying from 62.6
to $30,000 even.
to 32,000 even, which is a $30,600 reduction?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
30,000 what?
600, 306.
The reduction.
Is the reduction. From 62,600 to 32,000, is that correct?
To 30, no, reduced by 32,600, so it, so the resulting amended line would be 30,000 even.
That's what I thought he said.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. Would you speak to your motion, please, Bill?
Yes. I'm just, again, mindful of the times. I'm showing that at present, we're tracking at 26.8 for the year. And although I understand the reasoning behind professional program improvement, and I understand its value, I'm just, again, I see it as a non-core budget item, and that in tough times, if we can cut back a little bit in interim years here on professional program improvement, maintain what appears to be something to the extent of 30,000 would keep on track with what the spend has been this fiscal year, then that's appropriate way to cut back, still maintain monies that, based on the spend history, still remains within the need without going too far above.
Guy, speak to your second.
I would agree with Bill, and point out that, you know, Bill's motion, it may be a reduction to the requested amount, but it's still an increase of over 3,000 to what the current budget amount is. So, it's still an increase, it's not what they're asking for, but at least it's an increase, and it's considerate of the conditions that we're all living through right now.
Philip, then I have Elizabeth.
I'd like to amend that motion from the, I want to bring it up to 42,600. So I want to add 1,200,600 to it. So a net reduction of $20,000.
So you wanna go from 30,000 to what? What-
42,600. 42,600.
So you wanna add 12.6 back into it, so the net would be a $20,000 reduction.
Exactly.
Is there, do everybody understand the amendment?
I understand, I'll second it.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Point of order?
Yes.
If it's a debate on the item,
I just need to know where we are. I'm on
Perfect.
page 22.
let me, I'll read it to you.
Right here, thank you, I just told her thank
On
you.
page 22, there is an account 000-2213-322.
The total,
The total, because there were two programs, there's a 16 and an 18 that you have to add together to come up to the total professional educational services of $62,600.
okay.
Because we don't go to the detail level, or the spreadsheet doesn't, the difference between 16, the dash 16 and the dash 18, you gotta kinda add them together to come to the motion.
What's he talking about adding together?
We are now
There's,
I don't know.
on
I'm only
the
talking about a
amendment.
single line.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm not putting multiple.
I can't figure out what you mean by adding together.
Okay, if you're on a paper, are you on a paper or
No,
electronic?
I'm using it on the,
That's why. It's
Oh.
been added together on the computer.
okay. Okay.
In the detail sheet, it breaks it down even further to
Okay.
two different levels, level 16 and level 18, and I'm frankly can't remember what those are. It means something, but I can't remember what they are.
Okay, okay.
It's on page 22.
Who seconded that one?
Richard.
Okay.
Then would Philip speak to his amendment, please? And I still have two people on the original list for the main motion, actually, I only have Elizabeth on the main motion, but you have your amendment, please speak to it.
okay. I understand reduction, and I understand this, it looks like it's a huge increase, but I'm looking at the detail that was provided, and, excuse me, per contract obligations, we have to have $150 per teacher, $260 teachers per their contract, which is $39,000 right there. And then the, excuse me, the Power School, if I'm reading this correctly, is one seat at $3,600. Adding those two together, meeting the requirements. And the reason there's an increase is also there's a reduction in grant money coming in. So adding the Power School in there, which we need to maintain, because that's all this, it's kind of the backbone of the lunch programs and how we get information about the students maintained, teachers' report cards and all that stuff, which is very helpful. And then also the contract. I know there's gonna be discussions about contracts and meeting, but something we voted in 5 years ago, we gotta live up to it. They're negotiating new contracts now, but it's something we're stuck with this year, so that's where I came up with the 42,600.
Richard, speak to your second, please.
While Phil was making the motion, I was doing the same math to see what would be the minimum amount of funding that would get the job done, and have on my sheet here $42,600 also.
Further discussion on the amendment. Elizabeth.
Well, this isn't gonna be a very good discussion point, but I'm kinda confused, I gotta tell you. I don't really understand what Title II-A grant money is, and I didn't see where we're coming up with the number 42, blah, blah, blah. Maybe because I was trying to figure out where I was, but I guess my discussion question is, gee, I hope somebody talks some more and explains this again.
Richard and Bill. Richard
The
first.
reason I will support this amendment is by doing the following math. I came up with 42,600. I took the number 260 provided by the school board, multiply it times the cost of 150 each to get 39,000. Then I added the number 3,600, the cost for Power School University, and it came up to $42,600. And I figured that's enough funding to get the education done, the education of the teachers in this case. Still, it does reduce the requested amount.
Okay.
I can answer your question about.
No. Do you want me to put you on a list?
Sure.
Bill?
So, thank you for doing the math, appreciate it. I'm going strictly from the current budget, so I guess if I read Phil correctly, there's been a cutback in some kind of grant funds. But again, all that being the case, the current budget and the current spend is below $30,000. So that tells me two things. If it's contractually if somehow there's a contractual obligation to this, I hope, for the benefit of the rest of the surviving budget committee members next year, you will put all the contractual obligations in a pile and color them on the spreadsheet, so you know what's a contractual obligation when you're trying to propose a reduction or increase in lines. Not sure that's a real good way to make sure some of these things are intact, but my point is, we're beneath $30,000 right now, and if there is some kind of contractual obligation that, if exercised, and it doesn't look like the exercises this year, would exceed the 30,000, then they can, at manager's discretion, just like they did with the whiteboards last year, the boards last year, management discretion says they can add money back from other lines. So I'm not gonna support the amendment, but I won't only ask the chair that maybe next year that all contractual obligations are flagged, so this committee's better informed and can make better decisions.
You want more work on his plate.
Checker?
Yes. So there.
Just
Title
clarify.
15 or something.
Title 2A funding.
If you can speak to the committee, this is the committee's motion. I didn't hear you.
Title 2A funding is the funding that the state and.
But you're giving information, you need to debate why. I'm sorry, I need to.
I think Title II funding is given to school districts to pay for teacher improvement for professional development.
We're missing it, that wasn't but go ahead.
to,
I'm
like,
trying to
not
follow the
acknowledge her.
rules
Like,
that you
listen,
guys
but-
did. If we're gonna go into a discussion, I don't wanna make it a common goal, or else we're gonna get lost. Philip?
Yes. Hopefully I can add to, the reason I came up with a number, and I understand flagging stuff would be helpful, but I think that's something that we should do after we get the information from Dan's manipulation. But the detail is there. That's why we have the detailed descriptions in there as to what they came, how the school board came up with their budgets. And I want to be careful. We voted on that we're starting with the school board budget and going one way or the other. We're not starting with last year's number. I understand we look at historical information. What the detail is telling us, and the reason I came up with the number again, is that, I'm looking for my little notes here, is that the reason that this year's number is less than the number I came up with is because they're getting grant money to subsidize this line. That grant money is drying up, if you will. So therefore, this year, or this coming year, will be higher because of that grant money not being there. So we can't, this is a perfect example of why we can't look at last year's numbers and go up from that or down from there, because you're not seeing grant monies affect these lines exactly. But the detail is there in saying that they're losing $16,000 in grant money. So that alone, $16,000 plus the close to $30,000 gets you to $46,000. I mean, right now, or I guess I got put my glasses back on. 26,800 plus the 16,000 they're losing works out to 42,800. So if you look at it that way, my motion is very close to what they're spending more budgeted for this line, for this year. Another way of looking at it.
Anything further? If not, you ready for the question? The question is on the amendment. The amendment is to adjust the main motion by not having such a large reduction. Instead of having a $32,600 reduction, you'd only have a $20,000 deduction that we'd be talking about if it passes. We are talking about an amendment. The amendment is to the main motion.
I'm listening.
The main motion was to reduce $32,600. The amendment is to reduce only $20,000. So if you vote yes and it passes by majority, we will then talk about the main motion to reduce only $20,000. If you vote no and it doesn't pass, we will talk about reducing that line by $32,600. Do we understand the question? Are all those in favor of the amendment signify by raising your hand, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. 9 4 is 13. That isn't interesting vote.
Well, wait a minute, all right, so maybe I
I
didn't.
think she,
It passes, by the way, it's amended. Scott, yes?
I'll be a yes.
Richard?